Hi, everybody. It's Christine, and I hope you're doing well. It's going to be another very beautiful day here in Brussels, and I'm super happy to present and introduce Michael Perez to you today. He's a very, very dear friend of mine, and he's an institution in his field of NLP and hypnosis with an experience of over 30 years of training and facilitating internationally, globally, everywhere. And Michael has been really a rock for me in the past years, which I'm very, very grateful for. And I'm so happy to have him here today and to ask his 3 top tips how to stay sane and feel good mentally and physically right now in those times that we are going through. So welcome, Michael. Great to have you here.
Well, I'm very, very happy to be with you, Christine, as always. And your smiling face always makes me feel better. So we can start out with that. That's tip 4 that I'll just add in now, which is start the day by looking at Christine's smile. That will get you off to a good start.
Nice.
And now I just have to do the first 3. So let's skip back and do that one. So the first thing I want to start out with is I just want to start out with a quick concept. And this is something actually that Christine and I were talking about in the conversation that we were having just before we were recording this conversation. And it's a very simple concept. And there's an old canard that I'll resurrect for this one. It's an old saying that goes, attention directs energy, or another way of putting it is that energy flows where attention goes. So whatever you focus on, you will tend to have that take up a larger part of the way that you're presenting reality to yourself. And that means that if you want the felt sense of more of something in your life, you must focus on it. And if you want less of something in your life, looking at that is problematic. So let's start out with the first thing. The first thing is that if there is something that you don't want more of, stop staring at it. I know this sounds weird, and I know that sounds even kind of, odd. I mean, like, who would? But nevertheless, we are creatures who have been created by evolution to focus on potential dangers and threats. And look, when, for the millions of years that our species were out in the plains of the Serengeti, that made perfect sense because we were worried about lions and tigers and bears. Oh my. And we had to keep a lookout for predators and opportunities as well. But, this was an issue. But with very few exceptions, most of us are not having to worry about predators so much as a major everyday issue.
Not really.
If you are, that's your thing, and I completely appreciate that, but this is not most of us. And because it's not most of us, looking out for tigers doesn't make a lot of sense. This is also true not just of tigers, although, again, I do a lot of work in India. They worry about tigers a little bit there, depending on the part of the world. But in other places and in other spaces, you're probably worried about, you're worried about all kinds of things, whether it's in the present time when we're recording this, it's COVID-19 and the pandemic. But it could be other stuff. It could be losing your job. It could be what other people think about you. Any one of a million things that you could be focusing on. And if you have a habit of focusing on that, that's the easiest thing for your brain to do. And so the first tip is don't do that.
Sounds easy enough.
Sounds easy enough. But of course, this is where we come to the second tip. The second tip is not doing something is not a thing that you're doing. So in other words, like for example, when someone comes to me and they want to stop smoking, the first thing I ask them is, what do you want to do instead? Because not smoking is not a thing to do. If I walk up to somebody and I say, what are you doing? And they say, well, not smoking. I think that's an odd response. Because, there's yes, there are, I'm not skiing right now. I'm not scuba diving that I know of. Uh, there's a whole litany of things that I'm not doing. But what I am doing is I'm having a conversation with you, my lovely friends, and with Christine. And so I'm focused in task positive mode. What am I doing? And so every time that there have been obtrusive thoughts, every time that there's been catastrophic thinking, every time there's been worry or regret or whatever it might happen to be, the first question that I ask myself is, what do you want to do instead? If you're not focused on this, not focusing on that is not a thing to do. Focus on something else. And so, of course, that leads me to my third tip. The third tip is find a point of positive focus. And then, once you have found it, make it a habit. One thing that I do, now I used to do this with just a very cheap little plastic Casio digital watch, the ones that were all the craze in the 80s, right?
I remember
because those are the watches. They look terrible, unless you're, you want a certain kind of geek cred. But you go with your pocket protector and and your glasses. But the truth is that these little watches had a setting that allowed them to make like a little chirp, barely audible, every 15 minutes. You could set it for every half hour. You could set it for every hour, but you could also set it for every 15 minutes. Well, one of the things that I used to do is I'd set my little watch, and I didn't wear it. I just stuck it in my pocket. But I had it chirp every 15 minutes because that was an invitation for me to redirect my focus. The first question I asked myself is, what am I currently focused on? The second thing I asked myself is is it valuable? Do I want to continue to focus on that? And if the answer was no, then the next question became, what am I going to focus on instead? Now, because I was doing this every 15 minutes, that really started to change my life over time. Over the course of, let's say, a good 6 weeks, anything that you do every 15 minutes for most of the day, I'm not saying don't interrupt business meetings, don't interrupt phone calls, don't take this to dinner with you and interrupt your family time or your couple time or your relationship time or any of those other things, but just when you have a free 30 seconds. If you do that over and over again for about 6 weeks, guess what? Just about anything becomes automatic. It becomes the easy way of doing things. Now, for those of you who have gotten in the habit of thinking about things that make you anxious or thinking about things that make you stressed or thinking about things that make you worry, that's not going to change instantly, and that's okay. Because you're going to have to create a new set of habits. But let me ask you a question. When in your life did anything really worthwhile come instantly? Even if you had an amazing relationship and it was love at first sight, you had to build the art of living together comfortably. You know what I mean? Everything happens with time, over time. You learn, yes, you learned how to walk with one wobbly step, but you got much better at it, didn't you? Even tying your shoes. Yeah, exactly. But, when you were tying your shoes, there were first these lopsided monstrosities of a bow you were making until eventually, you figured it out, right? So, or at least some of us did. But you can figure it out. You can do this by, again, deciding what you don't want to focus on, understanding that you can't not do a thing. And then thirdly, replacing that with a point of focus and practicing it on an ongoing basis long enough to put reminders in your world, put little things that keep bringing it back and keep bringing it back and keep bringing it back until it becomes the new normal. And once
Wonderful.
it's the new normal, then everything gets easier.
Yeah. Wonderful. Thank you so much, Michael. So it's also a lot about being mindful and being more mindful during the day, and always bring your attention back.
And look, here's the thing. I'm a person who likes to practice mindfulness in moderation, because sometimes I do like to get caught up in a daydream or wondering about something or enjoying myself, as long as it's a positive experience, right?
Right.
But bringing yourself back into the moment and back into the now constantly isn't something that I want to do, but I do want to do it periodically.
Right. Every 15 minutes.
The question. Every 15 minutes, to ask myself the question, is this what I want to be doing? Is the thing that I'm doing right now the thing that I want to continue? Or is there something else that would be even better?
Thank you so much. Those tips, I'm sure, are super useful for everybody who's listening to them and who takes them to heart, and practice them. Well, I certainly will.
and fantastic. Well, again, I do it too. This isn't, I'm not just trying to sell this to somebody. I do this myself every day.
Yes. Yes. So, Michael, thank you so much for being here. And if people want to find out more about you, how can they find you?
My presence on the internet, aside from all the usual social media things like Facebook, you can find me over at michaelperezhypnosis.com. And that's the best place to find me. And I usually post all about my goings on and my comings and goings and trainings I'm doing and that sort of thing. And I also do some information products. So if you want to listen to me babble on about a few interesting things that can help you to change your life or teach you new and interesting skills, I'm happy to do so.
Highly recommended.
Thank you, Christine. And certainly, the other thing that I'll also say is that if you also need, some help, Christine is somebody that I've trained, and she's really good at what she does as well. So please feel free to consider talking with Christine and letting her help you to get grounded and centered and make your life a lot more comfortable going forward, because you deserve a more comfortable life. I really believe that. I think we all do. And that's you too.
Thank you so much. And it was lovely, wonderful, like always, to talk to you, to have you here. And I wish everybody, you included, Michael, a wonderful, sunny, and relaxed and positive day today.
Be well.
Be well.